Gibbon Etzebeth. I've been following him when he started playing, and up until now. In the beginning, it was always about, bashing and smashing everybody. He was like a little ticking time bomb. I think now that played 100 tests, he's calmed down a bit, but still gives his physical presence. He always has that physical presence on the field. I would put him in the beginning, it was nice to see him and Victor Matfield playing together. Put him and Victor Matfield together.
Definitief is Eben Etzebeth, die man is 'n monster. He's a beast vir 'n man, veral wanneer hy on fire is. Hy's strong, dikwels is hy aggressive. Net sy presence op die veld maak 'n groot verskil. Ek dink mense is bang vir hy man.
Thank you to Wesley and Ricky for those voice notes, sharing their favorite locks, if not the all-time greatest lock. Welcome to Nice Try for the fans, and as you heard, by the fans. Timothy, welcome to you.
What do you do?
There it is. That's how people know that they're in the right place. Once you hear that greeting from Timothy Josh, you know you're in the right place. So you can find us right here on your podcast distributor, whether it's Spotify, Deezer, Apple, Buzzsprout. Oh my goodness, we're everywhere. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can share your comments and also send an email, bsgproductions@outlook.com. Welcome to the show. Timothy, today we're going to be, can you believe it? Kenako, it is here. The World Cup is upon us. We've been counting down, we've been gearing up, we've been getting ready, and finally it is here. How are you feeling?
It's been a long time coming. It's a weird feeling, waiting for so long, and then when it's upon you, it seems like an hour left is seemingly longer than the months and the years that have gone before. But happy to finally, at least the Springboks won't be in action, but at least it kicks off in earnest. So really excited to see what this World Cup holds.
Yes, and there are lots of matches happening in this opening weekend, but we've picked out our top 4, and those are the matches we're going to be previewing throughout the show. That's what you can look forward to. We'll also, as usual, bring you news from the world, and we will also, of course, be making our picks for the best number 6. That's the open side flanker, the one wearing the number 6 jersey in the team. Who will it be? And this one is the toughest yet, because we've had 2 World Cup winning number 6s, and then we've also had the greatest rugby player to ever wear green and gold, Skalkberger, wearing a number 6 jersey. So we've got 3 stellar candidates, and it's going to be really meaty and it's going to be really juicy. It'll be really tough choosing those, but I'm very excited to hear your pick, Timothy. And then we have a treat for you. We'll be hearing from a South African sports journalist who's been in the game for probably longer than you've been alive, Timothy. And he's going to be giving us his takes on those 4 matches as well. So quite the treats. Shall we get into it? Because the World Cup is waiting. It's here. It's upon us.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking like it is a stacked show for the listeners. So, I said we're bringing out our best just before the tournament starts. So, obviously, we've recently just got hot news off the presses regarding the Springbok lineup. So, I'm just interested to hear your opinion on the makeup and the combinations.
And the bench. Before we get there, let's just take a quick whiz around the world news that's being made. I was quite devastated to hear of Caleb Muntz, that is the Flying Fijians fly half, and he's going to miss the entire tournament due to a knee injury. They're low-key my second favorite team. This is a massive setback. He's only 23 years old, and yet he's already made his mark on the world stages. He was basically the hero when they beat England at Twickenham not so long ago. So this is huge.
It's very unfortunate, like seeing these injuries take place, especially so close to the World Cup. I know there was another New Zealand winger that was also ruled out, unfortunately sent home also for a knee injury. That might be something, consider regarding just the nature of the game, that this is a possibility. Like training is not something that's hands off. You need to initiate contact. So it's going to be a tough thing for the medical teams to monitor and manage. But yeah, like you said, for Fiji, it's really something that, as you said, they're probably the neutrals' favorite, just the way they play. And him as a player has really come on leaps and bounds, and he's really proven pivotal for what Fiji really want to do. Yeah, so it's obviously very sad to see, and it's the worst part of it is that you can't really plan for contingency in such short notice. Like we've had, kind of a blessing, I guess, in a sense, with Mani to bed him in, to really get him used to it, and so it's going to be sort of choppy waters, but it will add that much more mystique and legend to the Fijian. Should they, continue to compete and really make a name for themselves, I'm sure people will really look back at the setbacks, and if they can do something about it, it'll just be a greater story.
Ireland have also been forced to make some late changes as they're missing 3 of their forwards. Jack Conan, Dan Sheehan, very notably, and Dave Kilcoyne, who's out for their match against Romania. And I know that this one might not be as devastating as Fiji's loss because they're not entirely sure how long these players have to be excluded. We just know that they're out for the World Cup opener. So they might be coming back. They might still be part of the campaign, but it's never great to see players anywhere, but especially, like you said, a time like this to be excluded. Staying with rugby and people missing out, but kind of moving away from the World Cup, apparently Michael Hooper, who was notably left out of Australia's World Cup squad, he is going for gold in the literal sense. He's going to be pursuing his Olympic dream, as this week he said Rugby Australia are looking a little more keen to include him in the Australian Sevens program. There's, of course, Paris 2024, and that's what he's set his sights on. What do you make of that?
I mean, I guess he's sort of made a pledge to himself that he'll be in France. Somehow high water. Obviously, I think we've always seen during the Olympics sort of predominantly 15 code players joining the Sevens, to give the team a boost. Just looking at his style of play, I don't think he has the outright pace, but he'll definitely be a benefit to the team. That's something that I foresee being something that can work. It's just whether it's beneficial for, up-and-coming players, blocking sort of that progress. But just in terms of work rate, we know the man is a machine in terms of leadership. That's something that I think Australia have been lacking on the Seventh Circuit. They are always sort of in and about victories, but just can't seem to lack that big match temperament. So having someone like Cooper, even if it's just in the squad, to really give some guidance would be something that I think obviously that would be beneficial. It seems like Australia's trying to build for the future, with their squad being the youngest as well. So I think they'll lean on these leaders in key roles, but might not be available in the future. So
World Rugby's chief executive, Alan Gilpin, he was in the news this week, just kind of reassuring everyone the bunker system works. New rules work. The refs are trained, they're ready. Because, as much as we talk about player matchups and injuries and everything going on for the sides who are competing, the refs are also such a critical element to the game. And he's basically just ahead of this opening weekend, reassuring everyone that he's looking forward to a smooth World Cup. No big issues, no big drama. The last while with Scott Barrett, Owen Farrell and those stories, I think the rugby public, we were a little bit shaky on some issues going, hey, is World Rugby going to get their things in order ahead of this World Cup? Do you think we're in a good place? Are you feeling confident going in?
Yeah, if you had to ask me a week ago, I'd say it seems like, at least on the field, things are a bit better, but it seems like the retroactive sort of punishments are something that I'm questioning more and more. I'm really intrigued to see how the shot clock sort of timer is going to affect it, and if referees are going to sort of penalize that. That will be interesting, because I know you said, they want a smoother game. And I think if it's implemented correctly, it could definitely deliver a smoother product, not having time wasting or having the ball in stasis in scrums and resetting lineouts and stuff like that. So that will be interesting. And if that does lean in that direction, then I feel very confident in the teams that prioritize those things, because it will really show some value, at least if that is how it's being implemented. Obviously the converse is true as well. It could just be a very sore point for many teams, depending on how their success or failure regarding those rule applications.
We'd love to hear your takes, your thoughts, even if it's after the weekend, after the openers. Maybe you could send us your ratings for all the referees involved and just discipline on the whole. That would be really interesting to hear. So do get in touch with us, educate us, enlighten us, and entertain us, if you will. Now let's get stuck in. We're going to start with the main one, the one that's opening it all up. That's France versus New Zealand. Hey, this one is tough to call. On one hand, you've got France, they're at home, they're the favourites, but they're also without, of course, we know Tamak. We've known that they'd be without him throughout, but now they've been dealt additional blows in Jonathan Dante and Paul Willemse. What are they feeling? Are they as confident as they look, or as we imagine they are? Then there's New Zealand, who now everyone has woken up and realized, oh, they can be beaten. Like, what's going on there? What do you make of it? Like, how excited are you for this opener? I'm salivating, but at the same time, I just have no idea. I don't know where to look. It's like a really, great spectacle, this show with too many performers on the stage, and you don't know who to keep your eyes on because something else might change. And how do you call this?
This, I think, is going to be sort of an indication of what has preceded this. So in terms of warm-up games, obviously coaches were playing around with different sort of setups and different schemes. So this will really give us a barometer for all the teams that have been, playing France and New Zealand. And if New Zealand come out guns blazing, you as a Springbok supporter will probably be thinking, wow, okay, we did really good to stifle them the way we did. If they come out flat and France dominate, then our focus sort of shifts and we figure out, okay, France seem to be, the contenders. And I can't look past home ground advantage. I personally think that they will probably still come out as victors. A wounded New Zealand team is not something to scoff at, but I just think in terms of preparation and in terms of cohesiveness, it seems like France is the more settled side. Like you said, they had, I would say, 4 major blows, across the backs and the forwards, but their squad it's very deep. Their talisman is still there, Dupont, and he'll definitely be sort of marshalling. And I think, they don't want to let this golden opportunity run away from them. They had a good World Cup the last time the World Cup was in France. I mean, they beat New Zealand, so controversially, shall we say. But just in terms of the stakes, the stakes that are at hand and the pageantry of it, I think France will come through.
This might be a weird question, but do you want them to win? Because of course the way the draw is laid out, if South Africa wins their pool and France wins theirs, then New Zealand and South Africa meet as early as the quarterfinals. Is that something that we're hoping for? Is that a weird question to ask? Because I do often look at results like that as well, just what's in it for us. I know to be the best, you got to beat the best and all of that, but really, do we want to see them again so soon? Or do you think it might be an easier route, and easier is in inverted commas, than meeting France in the quarters? What do you think from a South African perspective?
I mean, in 2019, everyone was sort of happy that, the All Blacks were in our group because we didn't have to play them until the knockouts. And for all money, it looked like we would be playing them. And then, England sort of dominated them. And I think ultimately we need to be the guiders of our own sort of destiny. We can't be waiting on, particular draws to fall our way. And, from at least from the fans' perspective, it might seem that, we might have an easier draw, should we play a certain team. But I think the box and, the coaching team and everyone's sort of planned with the idea that, whoever rocks up on the day as Springbok opposition, we feel confident enough to be able to beat them. And so I don't think they're really sort of, watching scores or looking at things like that. I think the Springboks are just entirely focused on their own destiny. With the history that's gone these past, let's say 6, 7, 8 years, I'm inclined to agree with them. I don't think there's anyone that we really need to be worried about or hold our thumbs that we avoid them. I think the Springboks are, whoever comes, we're willing to take them on.
Bold. I like it. Now, before we head into the next matchup, I want to introduce you to Carl Sir. More than 30 years. He's been in the public eye, television and radio, renowned sports journalist. He is sharing his views with us today on these 4 matches. He's going to share his takes looking back at recent matchups between these teams and then also what he's expecting over this weekend.
Right, so the historic 35-7 demolition at Twickenham at the hands of the Boks, I think, would suggest that the game is going to be a lot tighter than what ordinarily will be considered between these two. You throw in the fact that France walloped the All Blacks 40-25 late last year at the same ground they play on Friday, and the fact that France are home in front of 80,000 fans tomorrow night or Friday night, it throws a massive spanner in the works. But beware, I had a look at Sam Cane's eyes in that post-match interview after the South Africa game, where we turned the All Blacks black and blue, and believe me, the bear was poked. The pride of what is truly still a very good combination of players is in the gutter, and the only way from there is up. And France's form going into the tournament, let's put that into perspective: a 3-point win over Scotland, a 4-point loss to Scotland, a 17-point win over Fiji, and a win over the most disjointed side in world rugby at the moment, Australia. I think we'll give the Kiwis the feeling that they can get the same start to this World Cup that South Africa got in 2019. And if that is the case, would it not be interesting to see just how that impacts on a French team who are seemingly always 5 minutes away from a nervous breakdown? This one, I'm not going to call, but if you force me, I think All Blacks by 7. England versus Argentina. I quite frankly think the World Cup could not have come at a worse time for England. If you are only as good as your last performances, then losses to Ireland and Fiji, to me, suggests that Borthwick's England can't expect too much from themselves, but they are just across the channel from home at the Velodrome in Marseille, and if they play poorly against Argentina, I'm willing to bet the English fans will be on their backs in large numbers because they've been facing disappointment of late. This Argentinian side, to me, could be one of the surprise packages ready to explode on this World Cup and punch above their weight. And lately, they've been punching Mike Tyson hard. In November, they surprised Eddie Jones's England side 30-29. 7 months later, they surprised Eddie Jones again, this time as coach of Australia by 34-31. And don't forget, Los Pumas nearly surprised the Boks as well with that 1-point result in the Rugby Championships. I tell you who will not be surprised if Argentina go on to win this opening encounter is the bookmakers. They have Argentina installed as narrow 3-1 favourites. And if you're a betting person, it's not a bad bet to make. Wales versus Fiji. Now, Fiji is another team to watch and watch very closely coming into this World Cup. They had no problem against Samoa, Tonga and Japan. And they lost by 17 points to France, but France played out of their skins on that day in certain phases of that game. So kudos to the Islanders for sticking with it. If they can harness what they did against England at Twickenham in their first ever win over the English, then I think they have a splendid chance to pull off an upset. They broke tackles like they were running through twigs, and when they crossed the whitewash, they did it easily. This Fijian side has been together, priming themselves for the World Cup now for some time. They probably have had more preparation for this World Cup together as a unit than ever before. And they've got a splendid metronomic points machine in the form of Caleb Munt. So if they can stay structured and force mistakes out of the Dragons, we could be in for a major upset. Quite frankly, I think Warren Gatland is still trying to find his best combinations, and the World Cup is not a place to come and perfect your recipe. So good luck to the men in red. At least we know the singing of their national anthem will be something special. South Africa versus Scotland. Now, let's be honest, South Africa are, if we're really honest with ourselves, we are pound for pound favourites in this opening encounter. Much has been said about South Africa's decision to announce their match 23 early for this match, but such is the confidence at the moment now of the Rassie-Nienaber combination, they don't mind giving Gregor Townsend an extra day or two to pick his 23. The other thing we can say for sure, especially after the Twickenham trouncing of the All Blacks and the way we beat Wales in the run-up to the tournament, any team will find it hard to compete physically with the Boks. Now, the fact that Nienaber has gone to a starting 15, that is perhaps his best defensive combination at the back and amongst the forwards, and perhaps his most experienced, to me is a sign that the Boks are not going to take Scotland lightly. I think this is going to be a gritty, ugly, hopefully not a muddy mess, with the Boks keeping it tight, kicking for the corners and taking the dog for a walk with a rolling ball at every opportunity they get, until they wear the men in blue down. And let's not forget, it's a World Cup, a place where South Africa does South African things, a space where it is defense before anything else, but the kind of defense that has you wishing you were not born. So good luck to Scotland, keeping up with the green machine up front. If they are able to do so, I think that will be their best chance of an upset. And the odds are long, as their 10-match head-to-head stats suggests, where Scotland have just one win in that last 10. So good luck to Scotland, good luck to Gregor Townsend. Now, Manie versus Russell. It's an interesting prospect. There's no doubt in my mind that Manie Libbok is our best 10 with ball in hand at the moment, and no doubt in my mind that Finn Russell is an absolute match winner at his best. The problem is this game, though, for both men, is the opening match of a World Cup, where you don't want anyone to see up your kilt. So I think we will see a lot more tactical kicking from these two explorers than they would like. So it almost to me doesn't matter how much attacking nous either man has. I don't think they're going to play expansively. Scotland really can't afford to, given the kind of defence that they will be facing. And South Africa simply don't throw it around unless they know at least 5 feet of the 6 feet has been dug in the graves of the pack they are facing. So we're not going to see the typical Manie and Russell. But on the balance of things, where Manie Libbok's been pushed and forced to play a little bit differently to his instincts, he's come up trumps. And how sexy it is to have a man who can kick off both feet in an accomplished way. I'm looking forward to this matchup. Dupont versus Smith. Now, I love me some Antoine Dupont. He is just an instinctive killer on a rugby field, and he gets to lead the French team at home in a Rugby World Cup. The occasion has almost been made for this young man to snipe at an All Black side that missed 39 tackles. They missed 39 tackles against the Boks at Twickenham a couple of weeks ago. And if the Kiwis are as poor as that, on Friday, Dupont will shine. I also love the French structure, where the scrum-off plays a much bigger role in deciding sort of the pace and tempo of attack, sometimes more than the fly-off, which puts Dupont in good stead to really control matters. His opposite number, Aaron Smith, considered by some as the best 9 to ever don a rugby jersey. For my money, there's no better spray gun of a rugby ball. He's the most accurate passer in world rugby. But I reckon he won't be catching too much sleep before the opening match of the World Cup. I think stuck in his brain will be just how rickety the platform was that he had to play behind against the Boks at Twickenham. And we will gather very quickly just what kind of base he gets in the opening match. And if the World Cup home team see any advantage in their pack to the All Blacks, then it is game on for Smith, and we're going to be in for a treat. Because the French know one way of playing. Only one way. And we'll see how things pan out in the opening game.
It's going to be mouth-watering. No, you really just can't. And maybe that's why we picked these 4 matches, because there's no easy way to call it. Argentina and England. The last time they met was not so long ago, so we think we have an idea for where they're at, but this is the World Cup. It's completely, different context. What are you expecting from that match? England, they've been quite bold. That's been the choice word for the team that they've selected. They've included Tom Curry in their lineup, and of course he's a little match unfit, but he's returning, and what a way to do it. Of course, Courtney Laws and Ben Earl, they're up there in the absence of Billy Vunipola, who of course is is missing out for disciplinary reasons. What can we expect?
Well, I was really surprised to see that Argentina were sort of dramatic underdogs against England, at least prior to, I guess, Eddie leaving. That made sense, former finalists, sort of very much the same squad with a few missing players. But I genuinely can't see beyond Argentina. Argentina have a really good coach in Michael Cheika, and they've really made some really good performances, at least in the Rugby Championship. And this is on the other side of, New Zealand being praised and lauded before we played them. Mm-hmm. But they, racked up certain victories and were, I would say, a bit unlucky to not finish off the match in Joburg against the Springboks. So a very settled team, missing one key player, in the front row. But I think it's a team that has really come together at the right time, and I would humbly and happily eat crow if England can put together a semblance of a performance. But I just can't look past Argentina. I think they have the players, they have the coaching, and I just think for England it seems like it's players that are appearing together. I don't think they're a team, and I think that will definitely show. Obviously there are some risks for Argentina, but I think they should comfortably put England aside.
Comfortably. Wow, I was thinking less than 10, but comfortably.
Like I said, I'll happily revisit this, and you can ignore all my opinions afterwards. But I just think Argentina are a class above England, and I just don't see any sort of cohesion amongst the English. So.
Do you think it makes a difference? And this is just us again, the same thing you mentioned earlier. Should France beat New Zealand, they can thank us. So I'm doing that kind of Springbok fan attitude again. Do you think that time in the Four Nations in the Rugby Championships with the other Southern Hemisphere top dogs has helped Los Pumas get to a place where someone can say, oh no, comfortably they'll put England away? Because it was last year when they beat England at Twickenham, and a lot of those players are retained in this starting side for this match, and a lot of those players were those who were featured in the Rugby Championships when they did so well against us, dare we say, and against Australia and New Zealand. Is that the kind of preparation that gives them, let's say, the rights to be comfortable, to be confident going up against England this weekend?
Yeah, I think obviously, who you surround yourself with, who you're rubbing shoulders with on a regular basis, definitely adds to sort of that preparation that can take place and prepare you in a way that you won't get. And obviously the Argentinian players have also been playing, in France and in Europe, so they have that experience as well. I think it's just more the case of how they've been bowling. They had some other results against the Rugby Championship teams, and yet we can see there's certain progression and definite progression that's taking place. even the way they used to be way more spontaneous in their attacking play, but now there seems to be a bit more circumspection. There seems to be a bit more poise in the attack, and yeah, I think their scrum has improved. I know we didn't dominate the scrum as much as we did against the other two teams in the rugby championship, and I think that's a feather in their cap. Like I said, they did lose their starting prop, so we'll see how they adapt to that. But I think this has been, they've always sort of produced in the World Cups. I mean, 2007, they really had a few key players, but I think this, as I've mentioned in previous shows, that I think this is definitely going to be a squad and a very tactical World Cup. And so I think they have the better squad, just in terms of how they've prepared. I think player for player, England have probably more talent, but there's just, like I said, there's just no cohesion, and it seems like there's, mavericks running around and there's no real game plan.
And that's a perfect segue to our next matchup, which is Wales and Fiji, because Fiji, you could have described them in that way not too long ago, but those days are over. They used to be talented players, mavericks running around, as you say, no cohesion. That's not true anymore, and we did talk about this in depth in our last episode, where we're just, we've got so much admiration for Fiji and how far they've come and the structures they've put in place. And that is something that the Welsh are wary about, as they should be. Yes, the Welsh, they don't excite me as much as the Fijians at the moment, but they are just that team. When you think of 2011, you think of 2015, they're always bubbling under, and now they've got Dan Bigger. It's his last hurrah. He's got something to prove, something to play for. He's alongside Gareth Davies. They've got a nice thing going on, and then of course they have Faletau back for them as well. So a strong team, a full strength side taking on Fiji.
The Welsh team really caused us problems. We were a bit of a kick away from not seeing them, done. And like I said, it's mostly the same squad. They have some really good, I would say, world-class or, nearing that world-class level wingers, especially in Josh Adams and Louis Rees-Zammit. And then you obviously have, a very experienced head in Dan Bigger. But I think the thing that is really going to play in Fiji's favor is that exposure to the Super Rugby competition and that continuity that they can maintain, as most of the squad is made up of that particular club. And so, like we said, it's a massive miss to lose your fly off, especially so close to your first game. But yeah, this is going to be a real intriguing battle, because I would say Fiji, who can really stop them if you cause sort of chaos and disorder. I think they are much more structured, but if the game does go in that direction, you would definitely have to favor Fiji. Just from the neutral's perspective, I hope that it's a really good game and that the individual players can shine, and that it will be, it's the last game of the weekend, so I hope it's something that will really whet our appetite for the weekends to come.
And we can really feast on it. Well, a feast will definitely be on offer in the final match not the final match of the weekend, but the final match that we're going to be chatting about in just a bit. That's, of course, South Africa and Scotland. I'm excited and nervous at the same time. On the one hand, did that match against the All Blacks make us too confident, or did it show too much of our hand and how the Scots are able to prepare adequately? This could very well be our toughest match. And that's not saying that Ireland won't be tough, but it's just because of this being the opener, and then it's kind of knockout rugby from then on. What's going on in the back rooms? How are we preparing? And we'll talk about the team as well, because of course a number of changes, notably Jasper Visser starting instead of Dwayne Vermeulen. And then in the midfield and the wings, very different to who we saw up against the All Blacks. What's happening here?
I am oscillating between supremely confident and like a slight dread. I look at South Africa's record against Scotland and then I think, okay, well, this is a done deal. And then I look at Scotland's recent results and then I think, wow, okay, they've really sort of become someone that on the day, it's fair to say that they can really beat anyone. The Springbok team and most nations knew who their first match was going to be. And so this is not catching them, unawares. These people have been studying, and I know Rassi mentioned in the interview, I think it was a few weeks ago, talking about Townsend, the coach, and how they've had a sort of mini battle going on from club rugby times, and the mutual respect that's there. So I think, like you said, it could be our toughest match just because there's that familiarity, at least amongst on a technical level. And then we have a sort of South African flair in the team.
Yes, that kind of familiarity as well.
Yeah, which will definitely make things interesting. A funny coincidence regarding the referee that will be taking charge of this match is Angus Gardner. He was refereeing the last time we faced him, and the Springboks handily beat them. There I go, oscillating to a comfortable,
again. Yeah,
relaxing Sunday afternoon. But I think the balance of history, the quality of players, the coaching expertise, I think we can't look past the Springboks. In terms of the team, I think they went for what was at least some circumstances necessity. I know they said Kane and Jean Klein picked up some niggles and they didn't want to risk him. And I think that cautiousness is going to serve us well. I think maybe in World Cups previous or gone by, we would have been willing to risk. And Jacques' words were he'd rather have a 100% player than a 60 or 50% player. And so another match that I don't think we're going to cover, but I think Springbok fans will be watching with gleeful anticipation is the return of Andre Pollard potentially playing for the Tigers on Friday. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that. And then also I was just surprised to see Grant Williams. I'm not sure what you make of him having an appearance.
Interesting, yes, because Grant Williams, I imagine that he could then offer cover in multiple positions. That's what they're going with, and potentially getting Cheslin to only play half the match and then wrap him up and then give Grant a go. My thinking with Dwayne is maybe they want to alternate between Sia and Dwayne in terms of leadership. Of course, Marco van Staden, he can play anywhere between the locks and the back row. They're definitely, with these replacements, they're going for utility. I think they're prepared to be flexible. They're an element of reading and adapting with this bench.
I definitely see the sort of adaptability, and I think this match has been the pattern for a few of the Springboks, or many of the Springboks victories be won in the second half. And I think Grant does give us an extra dynamic. I mean, we already have a lot of pace on the wings, and so it'll be interesting to see how he does, depending on where he plays. I think it will be a tough match, but I think our forwards are going to lay the foundation, and we'll see.
Against quite a physical side, hey?
Yeah, I mean, I watched the highlights of the most recent Scottish game, and the way our scrum was moving against them. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have much issue in terms of fronting up. We have a mini squad, bomb squad, I guess, on the bench, so I think we'll be adequately covered for that. So
yeah, it's going to be a weekend full of entertainment. What is it that's getting you excited for these opening matches? Please do let us know. You can find us on Twitter at Nice Try for Fans. That's all one word. That's where you find us. Or you can search BSG Productions, which is of course the same as our email, bsgproductions@outlook.com. And we especially love hearing from you when it comes to our next and final feature, which is the building of the all-time greatest Springbok starting lineup. This is probably the most difficult one because we have had two World Cup winning captains wear the number 6 jersey and fulfill this role. Them, of course, being Francois Pienaar in the 95 World Cup and very recently Siya Kolisi back in 2019. And then, of course, my pick for this position, Schalk Burger, who was part of the 2007 World Cup winning team. He's my pick. That's it. I said it. Timothy, I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's really difficult, and I know when we were talking about hookers, you went with John Smith because of his presence and his leadership. And so you might be, leaning in the way of presence and leadership with Francois Pienaar, and then of course everyone's favorite captain, Siya Kolisi. So let's hear it.
Yeah, I would like to do the super sport rendition of Siamtanda. Can't really get it down.
Yes.
But yeah, that seems for me to be the only pick. Like you said, it's tough with Francois Pienaar.
Okay, sure.
It's tough with Francois Pienaar, but he's got a World Cup. He's got a British and Irish Lions tour under his belt. So does Schalk. Those two, I would say, are Schalk's personal story as well. Coming back from the brink of death. And then just the way he played, I still do have to give it to Siya. Siya's discipline, at least we can say, is a bit better.
Okay.
And should Siya really see out this World Cup, I don't think there's anyone that really can hold the candle to him. I would say Siya and Francois are on par in terms of the unionizing role that they've shown in their leadership, and in particularly trying times, I think, for the country's history. So I think just from that perspective, Schalk in terms of talent, he's up there with anyone, and I don't think I would say that Siya's struggling to keep up with in terms of production. And we kind of got a glance to see what he means to the team, particularly in this group of players. And so I can't look past him. I wouldn't begrudge anyone from picking Francois Pienaar or Schalk Burger. I think they are fair candidates, but just for me, and as I said, I'm a bit biased to a more recency bias. I would definitely have to go for Siya.
I was going to cheat it, I'll tell you that. I was actually going to cheat this and pick Siya and then wait for us to do number 8 and then pick Schalk and say, oh, surprise, actually I would play Schalk at number 8 because he can do that as well. Schalk is my pick. He's just such a nuisance. That's not even going by, coming back from injury, coming back from illness. Those things aside, he was just such a nuisance. He wasn't typical fetcher, and I remember Jake White being criticized for that at one point as well. And of course, he was so young in 2004. After making his World Cup debut, I remember that match against Georgia. I was thinking, who is this guy? Where did he come from? How is he everywhere all at once? And you mentioned discipline, and I see you. His discipline, it was an issue, especially in those early 2000s. But something that was always remarkable to me was when he went to the sin bin, it felt like we lost 4 or 5 players, because that was the work rate that he had, that was the presence, and that was just his ability to be everywhere and do everything, and that's why I picked him. But it is really difficult, and again, I invite those listening to please share their takes. Who is the all-time greatest number 6 for the Springboks? And that brings us to the end of what we have for you today. Such a jam-packed weekend. Friday 8th, 9:15 South African time. That's France versus New Zealand. Other teams in action: Italy, Namibia, Ireland and Romania, Australia and Georgia. They're all in action on Saturday. And then Sunday, England, Argentina, Japan and Chile, Scotland and South Africa. Of course, that's 9 o'clock South African time. And the weekend ends with Wales up against Fiji. Wherever you are, whatever you're going to be watching, we hope you enjoy it to the maximum, and we hope that listening to us and being part of this community has added to that enjoyment. It's been such a privilege being with you, Timothy. Your insights, as always, phenomenal.
Thank you, everyone. As I said, thank you for the feedback. Really appreciate it, and we hope that it's an enjoyable time and that we will have some good news as fellow Springbok supporters. To look forward to a festival of rugby.
Until next time, this is Nice Try.